Hi, I'm Ricki Pryor, editor of the Richmond Register, and you're watching the Pryority Report.
The Pryority Report is brought to you by Cumberland Valley National Bank. Trusted for banking, known for caring. Visit them at cvnb.com. Chenault Vineyards, a place to create beautiful experiences. Visit them online at chenaultvineyards.com. Shelter Insurance, Ashley Kovaleski. Give her a call, 859-624-0883, located 112 Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. And kymedia.net.
Welcome back to the Pryority Report. My special guest is Phil Syfrit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And tonight we're going to be talking about a new documentary that is coming up that Phil is working on in collaboration with the Richmond Register and Rosenbaum Communications. So what is the documentary about, in case people don't know?
Okay. In 1972, Madison High School had a really good football team. And they got to go to the state playoffs in football, but they had to go to Hopkinsville in order to play the game. And so the team went down there, and the town was really buzzing with this. I mean, so some fellas got together, some young professionals, I guess you could call them, and idea came up that, hey, let's charter a plane. We can fly down there, we can see the game, and we'll be back that night, because Eastern was going to play Moorhead the next day. And there was a lot of talk of who was going to be on the plane, and well, he was, and he didn't, and backed out, going on. Well, so 10 fellas got on the plane along with the pilot, and they flew down to Hopkinsville and to watch the football game. And unfortunately, Madison lost the game in the playoffs. And the fellas stayed around there just for a short period of time after the game. Then they got back on the plane. And unfortunately, a few minutes after they took off, the plane crashed. And there were no survivors. And it gave this community a real gut punch. Went to the football game at Eastern the next day, and it was like this huge black veil had just been laid over everything, because Richmond was a lot smaller then. I don't want to say that everybody knew everybody, but if you didn't know someone on that plane, you knew somebody who did. And you're talking about attorneys, business people, 2 Richmond Register employees, and it really was a very hard thing for this community. And it wasn't over in 2 or 3 days in the service bureau. This went on for months. And it's even on today, in that when you say the plane crash around Richmond, Kentucky, some people are going to think about 5191 that was 15, 17 years ago. And that's horrible. Not taking anything away from that. But most people are going to think about the plane crash of 72. And this documentary is going to explain what happened, who these people were, and what it means to us today, 50 years later.
Yeah, I mean, me working at the Richmond Register, we have all of our archives, and going through this and reading, the couple of days later, like in our archives, you have the obituaries and how painful that had to have been for the staff of the Richmond Register to write about.
That's right.
Their friends and their colleagues, and it was traumatic.
Oh, it was just a horrible time. And when everybody started finding out about it late or early in the morning on November 18th, because this happened about 11:30 Central Time down there, so technically it's the 17th, nobody was exactly sure who was on that plane. And, well, now so-and-so said he was going. Well, no, I saw him over here, and it was very, very confusing for everybody. In one of the interviews for the documentary, they were talking about, you don't think that so-and-so would have gotten on that plane, would you?
Oh, gosh.
And they were. And so it was just a tough time. And it's still tough. Some of the people that we asked to be interviewed for the documentary, they just couldn't do it. The wounds were still that raw to them. And if they couldn't, for whatever reason, that's okay. We still care about them. And, hopefully they'll like what we've done.
About how many, because the interviews are done, right? Are wrapped up?
We may have one more telephone interview. We're working on that.
Okay.
So.
About how many interviews has been conducted?
10 or 12. I'd have to look at my list.
That's a lot.
And most of them, they're not a classic interview like we're doing. They're just talking. They're telling the story. And some of them are friends, some of them are family members, brothers and sisters. We have the coach of the Madison football team at the time.
Wow.
Drove down from Northern Kentucky to be a part of this because it was such a big story. Everybody has an opinion. And my opinion on this is it was the biggest story in Madison County in the last half of the 20th century. We had some other ones. We had the tornadoes come through. Madison Central runs the basketball tournament, baseball tournament, all these things. But this really affected everybody.
Yeah, it was such a shock.
Well, you don't think about, well, I'll see you all later on, and then they don't come home.
Right. Well, and to have it because you've got the excitement of going to state, and then everybody is, excited about that, and then again,
and everybody's disappointed because you lose a football game. But as one of the interviewers or interviewees, said, we lost the game, but we didn't talk about that anymore. Yeah. After they found out what happened.
Yeah. Well, and it's strange to think about how confusing at that time was because there's no cell phones. There's no
cell phones. There's no interstate down through there.
Right.
Everything now is pretty much, we think it's instantaneous. It wasn't then. And, you had to, call and not exactly sure who was there and who went. And it was, sometimes the not knowing is worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that when I was going through our archives, the reporter that had went there and was calling in the scores had to go to like a payphone back then and like call in the scores for the game. Was thinking, I'm going to be able to see my boss, in the next thing. And the next day, he ended up having to write the story because obviously.
That's right.
So, I can't imagine.
It was you just don't think about people not coming home.
No.
And
and the reason why it's the documentary is this year is it's the anniversary.
This is the 50th anniversary of the plane crash. We're not picking a scab. We're more of remembering the scar. I remember riding that bicycle and I fell over there and Pryority Ricki kicked me and I fell over and skinned my knee real bad and got a scar. Well, it's still we're just remembering what happened, remembering these fellas, that we still care about them. And we wonder about the what if.
Right.
And they deserve to be remembered for what they were.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's going to be really, really great. I hope everybody watches it. And there's if you want to know the history, there's the historical marker a couple of years back, right?
5 years ago, on the 45th anniversary, we put up a interpretive marker, one of the flat markers with the writing and things on it, at the memorial that's up at Irving McDowell Park. It was between First Baptist Church and the Episcopal Church downtown. And then when the church moved, the marker had to move, and so they put it up there. And it's very, very nice, very, very tastefully done, but it doesn't necessarily tell people what it is. And that's why we did the marker, to show people what this was. What does this mean? Who were these guys? And so... Again,
just preserving the memory.
Telling the story. Everybody has a story. And we want to make sure that this one doesn't fade away.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the hard work that you've been doing on this. It's really,
I'm going to get
nice.
credit for a whole lot of things that I really didn't have anything to do with. This little ad hoc committee kind of got together, and everybody works well together, and we want this to be the very best it can be.
Is there anything that during the interviews that you kind of been surprised about, or that you didn't know, or because I'm sure it's impactful.
I can't think of anything right off now. We did have one fellow, he broke down a couple of times during the interview. And it's 50 years later, but it still hurts.
Right.
And I can't think of anything right off, but a lot of these are family members, and they could tell a personal story. Well, no, I don't know the personal part of it. So, yes, you learn that.
Okay.
But there was a story in if people know I worked at the funeral home for a number of years, and the older fellow who was there said that he came to work on that Saturday morning, and one of the boys' father was there, and he, get the car out, we're going to go down, we're going to get my boy, and Mr. Curry didn't have any idea, what are you talking about? He didn't know that it had happened. And so, but we persevered.
That's true. That's very true. Well, and there was a big investigation too, because we couldn't figure out.
They couldn't figure out exactly what happened, and I don't think anybody really knows exactly what happened.
So it's still kind of a mystery.
That's right. Was the plane having trouble? Well, possibly. Was there icing on the wings? Well, possibly. Was there too much weight in the plane and there was a shift? Well, probably. Did the pilot have enough experience in this type of plane? Well, that probably played into it too. So it just happened, and
it's one of those tragic things. But again, the reason why it's the 50th anniversary, it's coming out. That happened in November.
November 17th, and we're planning on having a premiere of it on November 17th. It's a Thursday at the Richmond location of the Madison County Library at 6:30, and we'll be on the lower level with that. And it won't cost anything to come see it. And then we're also going to have copies made of it for that you'll be able to get. We'll explain more on that later when we get to that a little bit more.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for having me and being a part of this important project. It's
close to, as an employee of the Richmond Register, it's kind of, when you come to work there, you kind of get the story, and that's one of the stories that's been told to probably about every employee that's passed there.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, did you know that we lost 2 employees, in this really tragic accident. So it kind of, it's still there, even after all those years.
So,
well, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Be sure to look for the documentary next month. And thanks for watching.
The Pryority Report is brought to you by Cumberland Valley National Bank. Trusted for banking, known for caring. Visit them at cvnb.com. Chenault Vineyards, a place to create beautiful experiences. Visit them online at chenaultvineyards.com. Shelter Insurance, Ashley Kovaleski. Give her a call, 859-624-0883, located 112 Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. And kymedia.net. Download the Richmond Register News app on your favorite device, or sign up and subscribe online at richmondregister.com.